Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. 5 minutes past the hour. Pocket Einstein has arrived. Chuck Malamut is here. He is our official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program for the past 26 years. Chuck is the managing director. That means he's the leader of his team, the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. You can reach Chuck and his group at 609-383-2010. 609-383-2010. I just realized I was getting ready to do the broadcast. You called me yesterday, didn't you? And I missed your call. I just see the number, and I realized, but I was broadcasting live, and I don't think Chuck knew it. The following program is presented by Chuck, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this program are those of Chuck Malamut. They do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast, subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, member SIPC. And Chuck, I mentioned to Pocket Friedman over there that I sense that we have the first sort of hiccup. Maybe that's not even the right, fair description of the Trump era, the Trump bump, because we're sort of getting hit with geopolitical and some concerns about the debt ceiling, although I don't think – it turns out I think the leaders say they're not going to let that happen, but they've said other things, and it's gone the other way. And also the issue of the geopolitical things that have been happening. In any event.
Good morning, Harry. Before we get started, Kirk, I kind of wish that we knew Harry was going to be on the boat ride. We could have had Pocket Boat Ride. We love his family, but maybe we could have made arrangements that Harry could have ended up in the bay somehow. But no, we would never. Would we do that to you?
I'll tell you, you would. But
absolutely would. Yes.
You would make sure I would be safe, though. You would have me rescued. Noah, almost 10 years old now, guys. Noah says, "Granddad, this is just like if we were on the Titanic." So Granddad, without a flinch, says, "But with a happy ending." And Noah laughed hysterical. He goes, "Yeah, I just meant the way the boat looks. It's so big." He didn't mean the sinking, but it was out of the mouths of babes. But yes, it was a great Chuck. I had never done that before. And Kirk, have you ever done? I know you have your own boat, but have you ever done the Atlantic City Cruise Tour? Chuck, I'm telling you, you will love it. It's an hour long, so it's not like, all day or anything. We had dinner early because you either could go to the 4 p.m. if it's available or the 6 p.m. We went to the 6 p.m. cruise, so we had an early dinner in Gardner's Basin, and then we went on the hour cruise, and it was just beautiful. The weather was perfect that night. No bugs. The wind was light. And the visibility was beautiful. And it is neat when you see – that's why I used to love my job. One of the things I loved about my job at then Trump Castle, that beautiful harbor view, which is now called the boathouse – or the chart house, rather, I guess. The view of the Atlantic City skyline. When you see things from a different vantage point, it's really spectacular. I just encourage this. I've had so many offers to go on the cruise and for some reason had never gone on it. And I'm so happy that we did. It was Kristen's idea. So happy that we did it. Chuck, what's the market update?
So, Harry, Kirk, we are clearly in the midst of the dog days of summer. It's August. It's hot. We mentioned, I think, in the first part of August that August traditionally is not a good month in the markets. We've worked through all of earnings for the most part. Majority of companies have either met or beat expectations fairly significantly. I did see this morning, again, a couple more reports coming, and we still are somewhat a little short on the revenue line, but we still get to the earnings per share or the net.
Earnings are pretty much, though, rear-view mirror stuff.
Well, they are, but it's. I think what's important is that when companies, do have their call, their investor call. Conference call after the earnings are announced, they typically offer some guidance as they're getting into, the latter part of the year, Q3, Q4. But I mean, clearly now, because there really isn't much to report in the equity markets in particular, all eyes, for the most part now, are focusing on the geopolitical events. And so you think about, think about last week for a minute. The market had a very, very tough day on Thursday. It was probably, I think, one of the worst days that we've had this year.
Did markets care about the whole Confederate statue monument update or what the president said or what he didn't say? Are they affected by that kind of thing?
Well, I think what's happening now, last week there was a lot of discussion and news around North Korea.
Yeah.
And if you sit back and take a look now, what has happened to that news flow? It's pretty much fallen off.
But let me ask you this, though, Chuck, because little fat boy Kim Jong-un was actually lighting off missiles and announcing that he had a small, what they call mini nuke, that they would be able to mount on one of his intercontinental ballistic missiles, and our markets were still going up. I was like, doesn't anything affect the markets anymore?
Well,
but there's this goofy fake news that I believe is more responsible for the markets. And let's put this in perspective. It's not like the markets collapsed or anything.
No, I think that the problem is that because where the market is trading at that 20,000 plus in the Dow, those numbers we haven't really gotten ourselves accustomed to. So what happens is when you see 100-point day in the Dow, people have a tendency to say, "Oh my goodness, look at the market's down 150 points." But again, it's the old.
But we're talking about 1%.
It's the old discussion: numerator divided by a denominator, and really, what is the net impact? And the one thing about the Dow, and we try to talk about this to remind your listeners, the Dow is a component of 30 stocks, and on any one given day, one stock can have a major impact with results with a Dow.
Disproportionate.
And so you really need to look at the S&P 500. I think that is more of a true indicator of the market.
And it was also down 1%.
It was, and the NASDAQ was down. But you think about the progress that we have made in the markets, inclusive of what happened last week, because last week the markets were down for the second consecutive week. The S&P was down 0.6%, but
it's still up. The Dow is still up over 10% for the
year
year.
To date.
Correct?
The Dow's up 11. The NASDAQ is up 16. The S&P is up 9, pushing 10. But you've seen really a lot of growth in markets overseas. The MSCI emerging markets, because a lot of that is commodity driven, and we know what's happened with the prices of commodities. That marketplace is up over 25%. It was given up for dead 24 months ago. The MSCI EFA, which is the non-developed marketplaces, is up 16%. So we're seeing a lot of money. And the Euro Stocks 50, the 50 largest stocks in Europe, are up almost 20%.
Chuck, let me ask you this, and I'm not saying this is the way the year is going to go, and it probably won't go this way. But and I don't want to seed the last month of the third quarter and mail in the fourth quarter, but if the markets just held serve for the next 3-4 months and it ended right where it is now, wouldn't that be a spectacular year?
I don't think anyone would be particularly disappointed with the results. But it's like anything else. Okay, we've locked in these gains for the first 7 months, 8 months of the year. What can we accomplish over the last 3-4 months, and are we in fact going to tread water? Are we going to in fact move backwards? Or are we going to forge ahead? We seem to think that most of the gains have been put in for 2017. That doesn't mean that you can't move forward, right. But you're going to have days, and we mentioned this. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. The differential in total return measured over a 5-year period, and please don't quote me on it because I don't have the stats in front of me, but clearly a testament of spending time in the market versus market timing. I think the average return was 13% plus in the S&P 500 on an annualized basis over the last 5 years. If you knock out the 5 best trading days That's 5 days out of 5 years. Which is a pretty low, very, very low percentage. Your total return drops by over 250 basis points.
I find that just staggering. It shows you how a little bit of time can affect everything, and it answers your question. That it's not even a question. It's a Malamut concept of spending time, because then you will reap what occurs throughout. If you think you can hit and run and jump in and jump out, you could miss the biggest ride, the biggest waves of the whole year. We're going to go to break right now. We're going to come back. I want to take an informal scientific sampling of public opinion. There's 3 people in the studio. This is, in my estimation, at least for me, this is the fastest year of my lifetime. Raise your hand if this year has gone quicker than any year that you can imagine. Kirk has raised his hand. Chuck has not raised his hand. Let the record reflect 2/3 of the scientific sampling. I can't believe that it is August 22nd. I can't believe it. I really can't. It's the fastest year. I was always told growing up every year would be faster. In my lifetime, that has panned out. Let's take a time out for a little bit. We're going to come right back in just a few, much more, with Chuck Malamut, the official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program. And remember, for all of your financial needs. So if you think about it, anything involving financial planning, retirement planning, college building, vacation planning, planning for your children's weddings. You know, people get stressed out about that. You could set that all up. If you know you have 2 daughters, 3 daughters, 1 daughter, and many people wind up also contributing and paying if it's their son's wedding. You could set all that up at a very, very young age, and a little bit each year, building up until, majority age and beyond, when your children will be getting married, and then you don't have the stress of all that. So Chuck can help you with all of that. 609-383-2010. That's the phone number. And tell Chuck that I sent you Hurley in the Morning.
Shore Urgent Care in Northfield provides fast, easy access to high-quality, specially trained urgent care doctors. Open 7 days a week with convenient evening and weekend hours. Shore Urgent Care features state-of-the-art technology in a comfortable setting and an expert staff that's dedicated to providing you with the ultimate in patient-centered care. Best of all, no appointments are necessary. For more information, call 609-365-5333 or visit shoreurgentcare.org.
Why buy a Lexus from Lexus of Atlantic City? For over 25 years, they've taken as much pride in their customer service as they do in their vehicles. They offer a huge selection of new and pre-owned cars, SUVs, and crossovers, and provide elite customer service with world-class amenities. Buying a luxury car is never intimidating at Lexus of Atlantic City. It's luxury at the right price. Visit them at 3169 Fire Road in Egg Harbor Township or LexusofAtlanticCity.com.
Both Seagears and Cape May are having their huge end of the summer blowout sale. Summer apparel, 60% off. Sun shirts, t-shirts, board shorts, hats, flip-flops, boat shoes, all on sale. Unbeatable prices on all of your favorite brands. Seagears sale runs through Sunday, August 27th. Both stores are open 7 days a week year-round. The most anticipated Seagear sale of the year is going on now. Seagear Outfitters at 795 Route 109 in Cape May and the original Seagear at 1144 Route 109 in Cape May.
Attention all CPAP users. This is an important message regarding your CPAP machine and your health.
If my husband's CPAP machine isn't cleaned well, it could make him sick. But with the SoClean sanitizer, we don't have to worry.
I'm Dr. Joseph Cranen, a sleep apnea specialist. If you're using a CPAP machine, you could develop a respiratory illness if it's not cleaned properly. That's why I strongly recommend SoClean, the world's first automated CPAP cleaner and sanitizer. SoClean kills 99.9% of CPAP germs and bacteria without hazardous chemicals, and it works on all popular CPAPs.
Try SoClean risk-free for 30 days. Just call 800-288-9944.
We just drop the mask in the SoClean and walk away. No more washing by hand every day, and no more getting sick from a dirty CPAP.
This risk-free offer won't last. Call now. 800-288-9944. Or visit trysoclean.com. Joseph Cranen is a paid participant.
If you're drowning in IRS debt and can't afford to pay, then you need to take advantage of special IRS tax programs that are available and free yourself from IRS collection efforts once and for all. Due to the financial hardship consumers are facing during the decline in the U.S. economy, the Internal Revenue Service has made it easier to settle delinquent tax problems. An open phone line has been established by Community Tax for consumers to call and see if they qualify. Take down this number or store it in your cell phone, but call the Community Tax Helpline at 800-624-5928. If you owe back taxes to the IRS and cannot afford to pay them back, or even if you have years of unfiled tax returns, there's no need to fear anymore. But you have to call the Community Tax Helpline today at 800-624-5928 for the help that you need. Don't take on the IRS alone. They can attack your wages, savings, pension, home, and even your Social Security check. Call 800-624-5928 for your free consultation and to see if you qualify. That's 800-624-5928.
This is Rudy Giuliani, and from one mayor to another, you're listening to my friend Harry Hurley, the mayor of the morning.
Hurley in the morning.
With Chuck Malamut, the official, the exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program. So economic data remains solid, Brother Chuck?
So, Harry, if we take a look, last week actually we were in studio and we chatted about retail sales, and they were projected to come in at 0.4, and they actually came in at 0.6. So, as a result, what happened was that retail sales did in fact rebound in July, and in August, the Empire Manufacturing Index ended up at its highest level since September 2014. So, I think in spite of everything that you're seeing, the economy. And I know you and Kirk talked about it a little bit, and he talked about the velocity money before I came in this morning. But the economy seems to be better than I'm going to say better than okay, if that makes any sense. The problem that we're seeing, particularly in retail, is that if you miss, your stock usually gets beat up. But here, if you're missing, you're getting demolished because there's just so much attention that is focused on the bricks and mortar. And as a result of that, I'm not going to get into any particular companies, but it's not hard to see that Harry, that if 5 companies report, one might do okay.
But why don't they, Chuck, take the whole – it's like if you're a patient with a doctor. They treat the whole patient. Why don't the markets say we have completely changed as a society, consumer spending habits are completely different, and especially when you think about Gen X, millennials, and the younger demos, and I believe even your let me just say this real quick: 25 to 54-year-olds, 35 to 64-year-olds, and even 65 plus are doing things like I do all the time, Chuck. Right from my iPhone, I needed something this morning that I wanted to get within 2 days. Do you think I waited until 10:06 this morning and I'm going to go drive to some brick and mortar place when I can order it at 3:30 this morning on my phone and have it delivered within 2 days with no delivery charge? I think that our financial markets are behaving arcane, and they're not accepting.
No, Harry, they're not, because what happens is I was talking specifically about bricks, and for the most part, bricks and mortar retail. If you look at consumer discretionary, year to date is up over 9%, versus right in line with the S&P. So
But how do you
the point I was trying
forecast bricks and mortar sales when people are coming online every day that weren't electronically purchasing?
The point I was trying to make, Harry, is that the market has a tendency, and we've talked about this, that if you miss your number, you're going to I don't want to say taken out to the woodshed.
You're going to get hammered.
But you're going to get beat up. But what I think that's sort of an interesting phenomenon, if you look at it, retail in particular, and now it's just got, not only is that focus there, but it's even worse.
Okay, but this is what I'm saying as a layperson. You tell me if this has any validity to it. Certainly, if you are in the retail business, you have to be mindful of how much revenue your bricks and mortars stores are actually generating and how much your online division is generating, because that's going to determine if you're going to close a certain amount of stores, open stores, whatever the case might be. But I think markets should then look at the entire result of the retail operation and say, all right, well, the bricks and mortar is down 5%, but digital sales, online sales are up 20%.
Well, Harry, that is accounted for when you look at overall revenue and earnings or lack of earnings.
And it should be, but it sounds like you get hammered if your bricks and mortar is down.
The point I was trying to make is that what happens on the market has a tendency to focus on particular segments of the market, and either good or bad. And we talked about this years ago. You couldn't be wrong if you owned technology, and you know how that story ended. So now what we're seeing is that particular subsector of consumer discretionary, has been taken out to the woodshed. Now that, I think, an astute investor, oftentimes holds their nose and sort of jumps in when it's like the boat. Everybody goes to the left side of the boat. What happens to the boat? Everybody goes to the right side of the boat. What happens to the boat? So I think that it could, again, if you do your homework and understand, it's like anything else, understand what you're buying and why you're buying it.
I think someday the retail store as we know it is just going to be completely different, and in many cases it will just be absent because drones are going to fly the stuff to you. You try it on. If it doesn't fit, you get the next size, and then that one's going to fit. The drone comes and it takes the other one back. There's no charge for doing this. So the reason that people used to have to go to the store because you wanted to make sure the item fit, they're making it Amazon. I mean, you don't talk about individual companies. The concept of what I'm saying is destroying the bricks and mortar store.
Well, it is, and if that particular company makes a statement that they're going to get into the XYZ business, then
and they've been doing that.
Then look out, and the companies that are in that particular industry oftentimes move in the wrong direction. Interesting thing about it, and we can talk about Amazon for a second because we all are consumers. Purchased an item, it didn't work for me. Printed the return label. Didn't even had to drop it off at the UPS store, and somewhere along the way, the account was credited. I think even before
they got it back.
I know they didn't get it back. I don't even know if it got to the UPS store.
That's what they do.
So
I'm telling you, I have to say, I use them all the time. If you saw my account, Chuck, you say, "Oh my God, stop it!" They're amazing. And I know that it's killing the ma pa, which breaks my heart, but they are so good at what they do. And because you gave me permission to talk about one example, I'm going to further this just a little bit. Go hit that toll-free number right from your iPhone that pops up on the screen. If you have any issue whatsoever, within 3 rings, you have a human being. It's remarkable. And they will immediately credit you on the spot, and then you tell them, that you will send it back. Usually the return label is with the item. Sometimes you don't get a return label. They'll tell you, they'll send you an email. You print it right out. In our case, you dropped it off somewhere. They will usually just come and pick it back up, where you don't even have to drop it off anywhere. Now, what does that mean to that little store that has rent, staff, benefits, other overhead. How can they compete, Chuck?
Very, very challenging, Harry. No doubt about it. I'm not going to say it's the death of retailing. I think probably more appropriately said is the reshaping of retail.
I believe bricks and mortar stores will only exist in the future when a company decides they want to provide it as a service, and it will be a net loser. And they'll accept that in order to provide a certain level of service, that there are some people that would want to physically go and see and touch and feel, and that they will do that. But I think that's
high-end retailing, I think, Harry, will continue to exist. There's nothing that can't be said about going into a store and having that experience, and again, it's spending a considerable amount of money for some goods and services. I don't think that goes away.
It all depends. I mean, I'll give you the flip side. I enjoy going on my iPhone, knowing what I want, or even sometimes searching and then getting suggestions. And then maybe I have 20 alternatives in terms of price, no shipping. Is it an Amazon Prime item, or is it a company that wants to compete and they'll offer it for no shipping? I enjoy just as much the virtual shopping experience as I do if I went to a store and I don't have to drive to that store and park and walk in and wait for crowds if there's any and all this. I think I am not unique in terms of completely changing shopping habits.
Like I said, it's not the ultimate demise. I think it's more the reshaping.
I think it's a fair answer, but I still think that it will only exist because a company makes a decision to have it.
I can't imagine you would, go online and buy a $2,000 piece of jewelry, $3,000, $5,000 piece of jewelry, sight unseen.
I bought that online, brother, and I've had it for 10 years. It's on my wrist, fully guaranteed. Papers.
That's a pretty nice knockoff you have there, Harry.
Except it's not a knockoff, brother. So there you go with that. There is a level of confidence that you can make an expensive purchase virtually, and I just showed it to you.
All right. Well, I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Listen, I love that we're having split decisions. Mm-hmm. You are the official financial advisor, so I will not push any harder. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Don't go away. He is Chuck Malamut, the official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program. When you're setting up everything from retirement planning, and what Chuck will tell you when you sit down, you start earlier the better, Chuck. That's the answer. There's never a bad time to get started because obviously you want to have, as Chuck says, time in the market. But obviously, Chuck, the earlier the better.
Absolutely, Harry.
Brief timeout, 609-383-2010 to reach Chuck and the Malamut Group.
WPG Talk Radio 104.1 is your radio home for the 2017 Atlantic City Air Show. Join us Wednesday morning at 9 for our live coverage anchored by Harry Hurley and experience the nation's largest midweek air show. And if you'll be at the show, bring a portable radio tuned to 104.1 FM or 1450 AM. Or listen on your phone at WPGTalkRadio.com. The Atlantic City Air Show, Wednesday on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
In this tight labor market, finding new employees can be tough. Whether you're the business owner or an HR professional, you want access to highly qualified candidates fast. More than 3 million businesses use Indeed.com, the world's #1 job site. Whether you need entry-level or highly skilled employees, no matter the industry, with Indeed you get immediate access to a high-quality pool of talent with no long-term contracts or upfront fees. For a limited time, Indeed is offering new users a $50 credit to make their first job listing a sponsored job with premium visibility so more candidates will see it. You want to make a great hire fast, and this exclusive offer gives you a head start. Independent research shows 6 times more hires are delivered through Indeed than any other job site, making Indeed your one-stop source for hiring. To redeem this offer, go to Indeed.com/offer. That's Indeed.com/offer. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
Hi, this is Ron Rossi. Have you heard about the new lower price on the 2017 Civic LX 4-door? Now at Rossi Honda during our summer sales, you can get this new Civic for only $99 a month. And if you're buying, 0% APR is available. And don't forget, up to 5 years and 60,000 miles of free oil changes are included. At Rossi Honda, we treat you better, period, for less on Delsey Drive in Vineland.
$29.95 down, tax tag, stock fees extra, 36-month lease, 12,000 miles per year to qualified buyers. See dealer for details. WPG Talk Radio 104.1 has teamed up with Rossi Honda on South Delsey Drive in Vineland to bring you the Teen Safe Driving Program. As parents, we need to instruct our teens how to handle emergencies. Remind them not to text while driving and never drink and drive. Bring your teen's car into Rossi Honda for a free safety check, no matter what the type or where you bought it. Or have them come in for a free safety class. Well, they'll learn how to change a flat tire, what to do about a dead battery, or what to do when they run out of gas. Call Rossi Honda for an appointment.
The insane inflatable 5K is coming to town, so grab your friends, create some crazy, insane costumes, and sign up today. Get fit while having fun. Here's your chance to get with friends and kick off your weekend with an insanely good time. Check out the Insane Inflatable 5K and register early to take advantage of special savings at insaneinflatable5k.com.
The Insane Inflatable 5K is the most fun, wild, and insane obstacle run in the world. And on Saturday, October 7th, it's at the Flying W Airport in Medford. Brought to you by State Farm.
When it comes to the success of your small business, you make every dollar count. So what could you do with $10? It may not sound like a lot of money, but it's enough to turn 500 strangers into 500 connections. All it takes is the right business card. Go to Vistaprint.com today and you'll get 500 high-quality custom business cards for only $9.99. You heard right. 500 business cards for $9.99. That's less than 2 cents per card. But don't let the price fool you. Vistaprint uses only carefully selected inks and paper stocks, so your satisfaction is absolutely guaranteed every time for any reason. You'll find dozens of designs that are just right for your business at Vistaprint, and you can add your logo and contact information with just a few clicks. It's never been easier to turn strangers into connections. Just visit Vistaprint and start today because this offer won't last forever. Get your 500 business cards for just $9.99 at Vistaprint.com. Use promo code 8383 at checkout. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code 8383.
Hey, wake up with Harry Hurley and drive home with me, Sean Hannity, 3 to 6. It's all happening here on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
All right, Chuck, I'm going to throw a little flag. I had a little age discrimination played against me during the break. You can testify to it. I'm going to hold harmless because this person is very important to me. He's a dear friend, and he's very, very, meaningful to me. But
when he's right, he's right.
When he said, though, he is surprised at my
how quickly you are to adapt to the
purchase,
internet,
right,
based on your age.
Yes,
it was perfect.
But he said he's so intelligent. He didn't use the word age.
Yeah, but it was great.
But it meant that.
So Harry, let's kind of shift gears. Yeah. So we got totally off track as you took your 3-hour cruise over the weekend.
I think that was good.
But we didn't talk about
dialogue.
What you wanted to start and chat about was the political climate.
Yes. What you would call geopolitical.
Yeah. So unfortunately, what we're seeing here is we're seeing the darkest days. I think for the Republicans. It's been last week was just another head-spinning week for the Trump administration. The president was obviously clearly criticized for the remarks that he made about Charlottesville. Steve Bannon left the White House, and there was a lot of speculation about who was going to be next. And
by the way, I want to make a comment about Steve Bannon.
But hold that for 1 second, because what happened what happened on Friday, I believe it was Friday. When it was announced that he was leaving, the market was down. It immediately, retraced all those losses and traded positively. Yeah. But, Friday, dog days of summer, expiration date of options. I mean, the market was down the Dow was down about 75 for the day.
There was a fake news report that I wanted to respond to, Chuck, right when you brought up Bannon. There was you might remember the person, I don't, but there was somebody very, very famous that evidently traded for so many years, on the floor, and this was a coincidence. There was an announcement that he would be retiring, and it was his last day, and the place erupted. Simultaneously, Bannon left the White House, and the news media reported that the floor erupted because of Bannon leaving, as though the markets loved it and celebrated it, and it was completely specious. That's what I wanted to share with you.
And unfortunately,
isn't that terrible?
It is. And as the week continued, the president disbanded, 2 of his advisory business councils. So then you see that that split just continues to widen between the establishment and the populist wings of Trump's supporters. So if that turmoil obviously persists over the next couple months, it could lead to obviously the election not too far away, where the Republicans are going to have a fairly tough time in the midterms.
Yeah, because you always do as the party in power, and then you have all this stuff that's been going on. Here's what I think, Chuck. See what you think of this, because geopolitical, to me, has to rise to the level that it would actually affect markets. I don't think Bannon leaving would do one thing or the other for more than a blip. But if you had a guy like Mnuchin leave, or anybody that's relatable in terms of the Treasury or directly with financial matters, I think that would hurt.
Harry, I agree with you on that, and which kind of gets us to the next topic, which is the Fed.
How they doing?
I think that's a pretty good segue. I mean, they're obviously in Jackson Hole. From everything that we are seeing is that, and you and Kirk talked about this last hour about it. The Fed's spending a lot of time watching inflation. The July meeting minutes that came out showed that the Fed officials are fairly divided and somewhat puzzled by the persistent weakness that we've had with respect to inflation. So we still think that the Fed is going to begin to normalize their balance sheet in September. There's been a lot of discussion about that. And the earliest that we potentially see another rate hike would be December. And inflation data needs to move higher before that can possibly happen.
Chuck, go back to September before we go to December for a quick second, and I want to get your take on this. Do you believe it's already built into the markets that there will be a small increase come September?
No, I think in rates?
Yes.
No, I think the markets are pretty much, I'm going to say 80% plus are of the opinion that there will not be a rate hike in September.
I agree with that. I just phrased it in a way that might have made it seem like I thought it was going to go the other way. But by December, yes?
December is a strong possibility, but again, the Fed is going to be clearly looking at inflation data. I mean, if the inflation data, remains, persistently low, as we're seeing right now, it doesn't really give the Fed any particular reason to go ahead and make a move, to raise interest rates. So, Harry, again, only time will tell when it comes to what the Fed's next move is going to be.
Very, very interesting. Politics continues to dominate the news, and I bring that up because I know it's something that you're prepared to speak about because you follow these things, but also because never before in my lifetime, Chuck, maybe not ever, and not in modern American history, has there been such a just warp speed political environment. We're at a pace right now that has to be having an effect on our financial markets, Chuck. They don't ignore what's going on.
Harry, I think one of the things we kind of chatted about it as we got started this morning is the fact that pretty much that's all the news flow that we're seeing. I mean, you might see right now maybe 2 or 3 companies come with respect to earnings. I believe there were a couple this morning, but if you think about it, Harry, that the reporting season is pretty much over. Second quarter operating earnings were up 12% year over year. Revenue growth was up a really strong number of 5%, with the highest percentage of companies beating revenue expectations in 6 years, and that's something we always talked about. So now that that's all done, for the most part, and you only have a handful of companies report, we're in that sort of that quiet period because you're in clearly the dog days of summer, and not a lot goes on the last couple of weeks of August. So all eyes are now looking at what comes out of Washington. And not only just Washington, Harry, but obviously everything is happening overseas. One of the things we kind of talked about that you asked, if it ended right now, are you satisfied with the performance of the market? So, we think that the strongest, returns are maybe behind us right now, but we do expect that as we continue through the end of the year, that we're going to see some additional gains in the equity market. So, the setback that we saw over the last couple of weeks, we think is going to prove to be more temporary than anything else. And you think about, we traded off of, multi-year all-time highs. And so there's nothing wrong with a little bit of a pullback, but I find it, terribly disenchanting, Harry, when you're watching, the cable news network shows that focus on financials, and they just continuously, in a bad day, they continuously roll, they scroll across the bottom, worst day we've seen in, 18 months, or whatever it may be. I think they clearly try to heighten your anxiety, and then you as an investor, unfortunately, will make, I think, some pretty bad decisions, because you should take opportunities like we've had over the last couple of weeks, and there's something that you're interested in, and you want to add to your portfolio, and it's down, 3, 5, 7, 10%. It's probably the time to do that.
Chuck, I love what you just said, and I think it's a big reason why you're so successful for all these years. How tough is it, though, for the investor to be disciplined, to say when something is like this that it's opportunity and not necessarily a bad thing?
It's very challenging, Harry, because what happens is, everything that we're seeing, the sentiment, the political backdrop, the concerns, everything coming out of Washington, you lose sight over the fact that you really need to focus on fundamentals. So, while a lot of the gains were put in the beginning of the year, we still believe the fundamentals should continue to improve and provide some additional tailwinds for equity prices. But the problem is that we all kind of get sucked into that news hysteria, and I think, Harry, the best way to prove my point is that, think about when you go to a doctor's office and you are sitting there and waiting for your scheduled time, and hopefully they're not too far behind the schedule. And what is on TV? It's either some sort of daytime show that I don't think you'd be terribly interested in watching, or there's some kind of news broadcast. And if you sit there long enough, and what do you see? You see at 2 p.m. the newscast, and then you see at 2:30 the newscast, and then you see it at 3 o'clock, and hopefully you're not there for an hour waiting, but right. It's just the tape that just keeps rolling on and on and on, and then what happens is you get, you get anxious. You're probably in a place where you don't want to be to begin with. And then on top of that, you're seeing all this news, and you just want to kind of jump off of the
it's
jump
wrong.
out the window.
Chuck, it's wrong on every level when it's sensational and they won't stop, and they basically put it on an ongoing loop. You can't stand it because they get everybody's blood pressure up. Then actually, the worst thing that can happen when they cry wolf, they desensitize people. Let me give you an example. How many times, and it's getting tougher each and every time, how many times when it's hurricane season and we're expecting a bad nor'easter or maybe even a hurricane level type storm, and everybody gets everybody going and says you have to what's the term when they make you vacate or whatever? There's a word I'm not thinking of.
Evacuate.
Evacuate, that's the word. They want you to evacuate, and then the first 10 times or first 3 times, whatever it is, people evacuate. Then if it doesn't hit, you start to not believe the next time you're asked to do it. It's that kind of thing.
Creating mass hysteria
Yes.
is what it happens, and it's interesting. I saw, obviously the eclipse yesterday. Everybody was, actively involved, and I saw a meme come across where guys in the supermarket, and he's holding up, bread and milk, and he's saying the eclipse is coming.
Yes, I saw that.
It was just so absolutely hilarious. Funny. But Harry, so.
Well, I have the early in the morning French toast warning alert system, right?
Yeah, I do know that.
Bread, eggs, milk.
So I think what happens is that, again, the next couple of weeks I think it's going to be relatively quiet in what we do, with not a lot of news flow. But I think with respect to, with what's happening with politics, right now it is taking somewhat of a toll
Are any of these
on the market? But remember, Harry, before I interrupt, fundamentals, are ultimately going to prove to be stronger. To drive the market. And, look, we've talked about North Korea. We've talked about the U.S. It seems that those tensions are easing somewhat. And all the drama surrounding the president is unlikely to go away. But investors are going to welcome, and I know, Kirk, and you talked about this, any hints of some progress as it pertains to the pro-growth agenda.
Do you think, and the reason I was interrupting, and you apologize for interrupting me, but I interrupted you because of what you were saying at that very split moment. I wanted to slip something in fast. I'm going to get it in now. I know you got to go in a minute. The violence that was happening, I think over the weekend, the fact that so many people showed up in Boston and they were on multiple sides of different issues, and there was no violence to speak of. I'm sure it wasn't perfect, but there was nothing that the media could go into their usual Rumpelstiltskin 24/7 torture us with what's going on. I think that did a lot to calm down the atmosphere.
It did, Harry, and I think that the next week or so will hopefully prove that we're heading in the right direction.
Do markets care about Confederate statues staying up or going down?
No, the markets are concerned about fundamentals. That's something that we all need to focus on. And the one thing that we really haven't chatted about here, outside of politics here, is the fact that we've had a pretty steep decline in the value of the dollar, and that's had some of us fairly concerned about that. You have the souring political sentiment that's happening here in the U.S. That's probably going to persist for a while. We do expect to improve the economy here in the U.S. and a slower shift towards tightening by global central banks, and that should hopefully limit the downside of the dollar.
I'm a fanatic about the price of oil because every penny at the pump is billions of dollars out of the economy. I saw the gasoline prices creeping up. Now they've come back a little bit. How are we doing relative to oil?
So if you look at the price of West Texas, Harry, as of last Friday, was at $48.57. Believe it or not, a year ago, it was at $48.20. So it was identical. Now, in the road that we traveled, as we got to the end of last year, oil was up to actually $53.75. So we made an upward move and came back down. But the price at the pump is a little bit different. The price of the pump at the year ago, Harry, was $2.15, nationally speaking. Traded up to $2.31, which you would have expected as the price of West Texas increased as we got to the end of the year. But here's sort of the differential. The price of West Texas has declined, and the price of the pump has increased. So we are now at $2.38, nationally speaking, as of Friday, versus $2.31 in December versus $2.15 a year ago.
Isn't it a confounding enterprise business to even understand how every time you think you have it figured out, the price at the pump can go up when it should go down. It can go down when it should go up. Chuck, I've spent my whole broadcasting career trying to figure out how, I don't know how it works.
Harry, I've been at this 32 years, I think, and it's just not only just the price of the pump and the price of gas, but it's so interesting when you oftentimes sit back and I watch the talking heads, and people say, "Oh, geez, they're so smart because they're on national television, they're chatting about whatever." And I'm saying, well,
and a smart guy like you was looking at it and saying, "How dumb are they?"
No. I didn't. No. I'm not going to say that. What I'm going to say is that the stock and the bond market can become a very, very humbling experience for all of us. And if you haven't, been taken out to the woodshed sometime in your investing career, then you have been just absolutely fantastic in what you do. But I think it's like anything else. It's when you go to the casinos. Hey, I went to the casinos and I won.
Yeah.
But you never hear about when you went to the casinos and you lost.
I know. It's a good
so
point.
the same thing happens in our world. You hear about all the winners, but you didn't hear that hey, I bought a retailing stock back in a year ago, and it's now down 42% over the last year. You don't hear that, but I think it's like anything else, Harry. As you travel through life, you will find times where you will absolutely look out into the horizon. You'll say, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe this is going to happen." And I think if you have that foresight and you can figure it out, that can, I think, ultimately provide some pretty significant opportunities.
This slogan is not a perfect slogan, but it's one of my favorite in your business, and it's sort of slang-ish. You buy on the blank, you sell on the...
You buy you buy on the rumor and you sell on the news.
There you go.
And it's like anything else that I think that does create a little bit of hysteria, because that to me is more short-sighted than anything else. And you see it multiple times in your career. When you least expect the markets to zig, it zags. So, Harry, I think, and again, not to be repetitive, but what we have built our strategies on with our business, with our clients, Mike and myself, is the fact that find the right opportunities, own them, through a few business cycles at a minimum, and chances are you're going to be successful.
Chuck, I thank you for the overtime. For everyone's financial planning needs, do as I do, not as I say. Call Chuck, 609-383-2010.
Hey, Harry, thanks for having me. Good luck tomorrow at the air show.
Thank you, sir.
I'll be from afar, but I'll be listening.
Thanks for being with us, Chuck.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Deborah Heart and Lung Center. For innovative care, demand Deborah.
Eating just a handful of almonds can do wonders for your health. A new study from the Journal of Nutrition shows that daily consumption of almonds can increase our good cholesterol and lower the risk of heart disease. Almonds are a great snack because they provide healthy fats, vitamin E, and fiber. They're also an excellent source of calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. These nutrients are essential in keeping our bones and teeth healthy, and almonds can help in weight loss. In fact, just by swapping a handful of almonds with an unhealthy snack can reduce hunger and overall calorie intake. You can add almonds to salads and yogurts, and they're even available in other forms such as flour and milk. Remember, almonds are still very high in fat, so one handful should do the trick. I'm Robin Stoloff for Health Update.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Deborah Heart and Lung Center. For innovative care, demand Deborah.
Your kitchen. It isn't just a room in your house. It's the heart, the hub. Peter Lumber Company and KraftMaid understand that. So if you're thinking about updating your kitchen, then it's time you visit the new kitchen showroom at Peter Lumber Company for great ideas and designs by KraftMaid. Peter Lumber Company. Small enough to give you the personal attention you deserve, large enough to give you the affordable price you need. Visit them at 300 East Washington Avenue in Pleasantville or online at peterlumber.com. That's peterlumber.com.
Heritage Links Golf Club, home of the 2-hour round and South Jersey's premier 9-hole challenge. Located minutes away from Ocean City and Sea Isle City on Route 9 in Upper Township.
We're a minute before the top of the hour. When we come back, I'm very pleased. Dateline Atlantic City, and I know how much Chuck Malamut loves Atlantic City. It's in his blood. The Malamut hotels and everything that, Atlantic City has meant to Chuck and Chuck's dad and his whole family. Legends in Atlantic City. And Chuck Malamut, not the first, but the second director of hotel operations at the Golden Nugget, Atlantic City, and he really turned things around. Shannon Bybee, then president, called on Chuck Malamut to take over the hotel, and it was really a tremendous decision. Chuck had 2 great stints at the Golden Nugget, Atlantic City, and also was director of hotel operations at one of the Bowie's properties, Bowie's Park Place at the time, and then Chuck returned as executive director of operations, even more responsibility than he had when he had left. But when we come back, when I say Dateline Atlantic City, we're going to visit, it's the only candidate, or he is the only candidate, not it, but it is the only office that I have made an endorsement in Atlantic City thus far, and that is the race for council at large, where we have extended a Hurley in the morning endorsement, which is far and few between. We don't do too many of them anymore, but we have endorse Councilman George Tibbet for re-election because he deserves it. Simply put, he deserves it. We'll get an update with him next.
104.1 WPGG Atlantic City, WSJO 104.9 HD2 Egg Harbor City. Everything you need to know in 6 minutes starts now.
Divers find bodies in the search for missing sailors. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. This as a wider review of U.S. accidents in the Pacific gets underway. Fox's Rachel Sutherland live in Washington.
Lisa, some remains of sailors have been found in compartments of the USS John McCain, but so far there's no word on their identities. Admiral Scott Swift, commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, told reporters there's no evidence of a cyber attack at this point, but added,
"We are not taking any consideration